March 8, 2024, 8:47 p.m. Security cameras inside the grand ballroom at the Palm Beach Ritz-Carlton capture a moment that will become crucial evidence in a murder investigation. A charity gala, black tie event, 200 wealthy donors supporting cancer research, orchestra playing, champagne flowing. The kind of event where Florida's elite gather to write checks and network. On the dance floor, a couple moves slowly to the music. She's 76 years old, elegant silver gown, diamond earrings, hair styled perfectly. She looks radiant, happy in a way that transcends age. He's 29, dark suit, tall, handsome. His hand rests on her waist, her hand on his shoulder. They're looking at each other like nothing else in the room exists. The age difference is obvious, undeniable. People notice. Some smile, some whisper, some judge. The couple doesn't care. They're lost in the moment, lost in each other. The song ends. He leans down. She reaches up. They kiss. Tender. Genuine. The kind of kiss that makes onlookers either romantic or uncomfortable depending on their perspective. Security footage captures 10 seconds of that kiss. 10 seconds of two people clearly in love. 11 days later, he'll be found dead in a forest 64 miles from the city. Beaten, strangled, buried in a shallow grave. And she'll die 3 weeks after that. Heart attack. Broken by grief. Destroyed by the lie her sons told her. The lie that Ryan had abandoned her. That he'd only wanted her money. That he'd never loved her at all. A lie they told after they'd already murdered him. This is the story of Margaret Whitmore and Ryan Hayes. A 76-year-old widow and a 29-year-old personal trainer who fell in love despite a 47-year age difference. Who built a genuine relationship over 18 months. Who planned a future that included Ryan inheriting enough money to continue his late wife's cancer research legacy. And whose love story was destroyed by two sons who valued inheritance more than their mother's happiness. Who hired a killer for $75,000. Who murdered a young man and then lied to their dying mother about where he'd gone. This is the story of how greed destroys everything it touches. How security camera footage exposes murder conspiracies. And how two brothers lost absolutely everything trying to protect an inheritance they never deserved. Margaret Rose Whitmore was born Margaret Rose Anderson on June 12, 1947, in Charleston, South Carolina. She was the youngest of 3 daughters. Her father owned a small printing business. Her mother was a homemaker. They were comfortable, middle class, traditional Southern family. Margaret was raised with expectations, proper manners, good education, marry well, raise a family. The life her mother had lived, the life she was expected to replicate. She attended the College of Charleston, studied English literature, graduated in 1969. Met Thomas Whitmore at a university mixer. He was in law school, from a wealthy Connecticut family. Exactly the kind of man her parents hoped she'd marry. They married in 1971. Thomas graduated law school that year, took a position at a corporate firm in Hartford. Margaret moved north, adapted to Connecticut life, had 2 sons, Gregory in 1973, Nathan in 1976. Thomas's career flourished. He made partner by 1982, specialized in corporate mergers and acquisitions, made substantial money. They bought a large home in West Hartford, joined country clubs, raised their sons with every advantage. Gregory and Nathan grew up privileged. Private schools, summer camps in Maine, college prep tutors, everything provided without question. Margaret played her role. Society wife, mother, organized charity events, served on nonprofit boards, supported Thomas's career by hosting dinners and maintaining connections. It was the life she'd been raised to want. Comfortable, respectable, conventional, but not entirely fulfilling. Thomas worked constantly, traveled for clients, was rarely home before 8 p.m. Margaret raised the boys mostly alone, managed the household, filled her days with volunteer work and social obligations. Gregory graduated from Yale in 1995, went into investment banking, married Allison, daughter of another wealthy Connecticut family, in 1998. They had 2 children. Nathan graduated from Princeton in 1998, became a corporate attorney like his father, married Jessica in 2002. They had 3 children. Both sons were financially successful, living in expensive homes, raising families, maintaining the family tradition of wealth and status. Thomas Whitmore retired in 2010 at age 65. He and Margaret moved to Palm Beach, Beautiful home on the water, golf, tennis, the retirement they'd worked toward. They seemed happy. From the outside, their life looked perfect. Wealth, health, grandchildren, everything society says should make people content. But Margaret felt something missing. Thomas played golf constantly. She attended charity luncheons. They had dinner together most nights, but they weren't really connected anymore. Hadn't been for years. They were companions, roommates, not partners. Then Thomas died. Heart attack in 2015, sudden, unexpected. He was only 70 years old. Margaret was 78, widow, alone in Florida. Her sons flew down for the funeral, stayed a week, helped with estate matters. Thomas had left everything to Margaret, approximately $12 million in assets, the Florida home, investment portfolios, real estate holdings. Gregory and Nathan returned to their lives, called their mother occasionally, visited maybe 3 or 4 times a year. They were busy. She understood. But understanding didn't make the loneliness easier. Margaret tried to fill her days, volunteer work, bridge clubs, travel groups, but she felt disconnected, floating through a life that had lost meaning. In January 2022, at age 74, Margaret decided to join a gym, not because she needed to lose weight, but because she needed purpose, structure, something to do with her mornings besides read the newspaper alone. She joined an upscale fitness center near her home, LifeWell Fitness, beautiful facility, personal trainers, classes, pool, spa. Her first day, she met with a personal trainer for an initial assessment. Standard procedure, discuss goals, health history, create a workout plan. The trainer's name was Ryan Hayes. He was 27 years old, fit, professional, kind eyes. He listened carefully to Margaret's goals, didn't condescend, didn't treat her like a fragile old woman who couldn't handle exercise. He created a gentle program, light cardio, flexibility work, strength training appropriate for her age. He was encouraging, patient, made her feel capable. Margaret started coming 3 times a week. Ryan was her trainer for most sessions. Over weeks they talked, not just about fitness, about life. Ryan asked about her background, her family, her late husband. Margaret learned about Ryan too. He'd grown up in Tampa, studied kinesiology at University of Florida, became a personal trainer because he loved helping people feel strong and healthy. He'd been married. His wife, Emily, had died 2 years earlier. Breast cancer, 26 years old. They'd been married only 14 months when she was diagnosed. She died 6 months later. Ryan was still grieving, still processing the loss. He threw himself into work, helping clients, focusing on other people's health instead of his own pain. Margaret felt immediate connection. She'd lost a spouse too, understood grief, understood the emptiness that follows. Their training sessions became therapy for both of them. They talked about loss, about moving forward, about finding meaning after tragedy. By April 2022, they were meeting outside the gym. Coffee after workouts, lunch occasionally. Margaret invited Ryan to a charity event she was organizing. Needed help setting up tables and equipment. Ryan agreed, spent the whole day helping. Margaret's friends noticed, commented, "Wasn't that young man a bit too young to be spending so much time with her?" Margaret didn't care. Ryan was good company, intelligent, kind. She enjoyed his presence. Ryan felt the same. Margaret was fascinating. She'd lived a full life, had stories, wisdom. She listened when he talked about Emily, didn't offer empty platitudes, just understood. By summer 2022, something had shifted. Their relationship was becoming something neither of them had anticipated. Margaret realized it first. She was developing feelings, real feelings, for a man 47 years younger than her. It was absurd, inappropriate. She tried to ignore it, but the feelings intensified. She looked forward to seeing Ryan more than anything else in her week. Her heart raced when he texted. She caught herself thinking about him constantly. Ryan was experiencing something similar. He'd thought Emily was his only love, that he'd never feel that way about anyone again. But Margaret made him feel understood, valued. She saw him as more than just a grief-stricken widower or a gym trainer. She saw him as a complete person. In September 2022, they had dinner at an upscale restaurant, not their usual casual lunches, something more formal. Ryan had made reservations. Margaret wore her best dress. Over wine and conversation, Ryan spoke first. "I need to tell you something. and I'm terrified of how you'll react." Margaret's heart was pounding. She knew what he was going to say, because she felt it too. "I have feelings for you. Real feelings. I know the age difference is ridiculous. I know people will judge. I know this is complicated, but I can't pretend anymore. You've become the most important person in my life." Margaret felt tears forming. Relief, joy, fear. "I feel the same way. I've been trying not to. Trying to convince myself I'm being foolish, but I can't help it. I love you." They sat in silence for a moment, processing what they'd admitted. Then Ryan reached across the table, took her hand. "So what do we do now?" Margaret smiled. "We see where this goes, and we don't care what anyone thinks." Their relationship became romantic. They were careful at first, private, didn't want judgment, didn't want complications. But by November 2022, they stopped hiding. Ryan moved into Margaret's home. Not officially at first, just staying over more nights than not. Eventually he gave up his apartment. They were happy, genuinely happy. Margaret felt alive for the first time in years. Ryan felt like he could breathe again after 2 years of suffocating grief. Margaret's friends had mixed reactions. Some were supportive, happy to see her happy. Some were judgmental, whispered that Ryan must be after her money, that this was inappropriate. Margaret didn't care. She knew the truth. Ryan had never asked for money, never hinted at financial support. He paid for dates from his trainer's salary, refused when she offered to help with expenses. In December 2022, Margaret told her sons about Ryan, called Gregory first, mentioned casually that she'd been seeing someone. They'd gotten serious. Gregory's immediate question, "How old is he?" Margaret hesitated. 28. Silence, then, "Mom, are you serious? That's younger than Nathan. This is inappropriate." Margaret's voice remained steady. "I'm 75 years old. I'm allowed to have relationships. Ryan makes me happy." Gregory's tone hardened. "Does he know about your finances? Because this sounds like someone targeting a wealthy widow." Margaret was hurt, angry. "Ryan doesn't care about my money. He cares about me." Gregory didn't believe her, promised to look into this Ryan Hayes, make sure he wasn't a con artist. Nathan's reaction was similar when Margaret told him. Shock, disapproval, immediate suspicion about Ryan's motives. Both sons hired a private investigator, ran background checks on Ryan, found nothing suspicious. He was exactly who he claimed to be, personal trainer, widower, no criminal record, no debt, no red flags. But they still didn't trust him. The age difference was too extreme. No 28-year-old genuinely falls in love with a 75-year-old woman unless money is involved. They confronted their mother, flew to Florida in January 2023, demanded to meet Ryan. The meeting was tense. Gregory and Nathan were cold, interrogated Ryan about his intentions, his background, his finances. Ryan remained calm, respectful, answered their questions honestly, explained that he loved their mother, that age was irrelevant, that he wasn't interested in her money. They didn't believe him. After the meeting, Gregory pulled Margaret aside. "Mom, you're being manipulated. This man is using you. You need to end this relationship before he takes advantage." Margaret's response was firm. "Ryan is not using me. I'm a grown woman. I know exactly what I'm doing, and I'd appreciate if you respected my choices." Gregory tried another approach. "What happens when people find out about this? When photos surface? When people judge you? Is this really worth the embarrassment?" Margaret's eyes flashed. "The only thing I'm embarrassed about is having sons who care more about appearances and money than my happiness." The confrontation ended badly. Gregory and Nathan left Florida angry, frustrated, convinced their mother was being conned. But they couldn't stop her. She was mentally competent, legally able to make her own decisions. So they did what they could. They distanced themselves, stopped calling as frequently, made their disapproval clear. Margaret noticed. It hurt, but she chose Ryan anyway, because he made her happy in a way her son's approval never had. Throughout 2023, Margaret and Ryan's relationship deepened. They traveled together, Caribbean cruise, trip to Italy. Ryan had never left the United States before. Margaret showed him the world. They talked about Emily, Ryan's late wife. Margaret never felt threatened by those conversations. She understood Emily had been Ryan's first love. That grief doesn't disappear just because new love arrives. Ryan talked about opening a cancer research foundation in Emily's name, using his savings. maybe $10,000 or $15,000, something small but meaningful. Margaret was moved by this. Ryan's devotion to honoring his late wife, his desire to turn grief into purpose. She made a decision. She'd help him make that foundation substantial, not just a small donation, something that could fund real research, real progress. In October 2023, Margaret updated her will. She'd been planning to leave everything to Gregory and Nathan equally, $6 million each. Now she wanted to leave something to Ryan, not because he'd asked. He hadn't. He didn't even know she was considering it. But because she wanted to, because he'd given her 18 months of happiness, because his dream of honoring Emily deserved support. Her attorney, Robert Morrison, advised caution. Your sons already disapprove of this relationship. Changing your will to include Ryan will cause problems. Margaret understood, but she was firm. I want Ryan to have $500,000, personal bequest, for his future. And I want to establish a cancer research foundation, $4.3 million, in Emily Hayes' name. Ryan will be the director. He'll manage the grants and research funding. The remaining money, approximately $2.4 million, would be split between Gregory and Nathan, $1.2 million each. Morrison drafted the will, arranged for independent medical evaluations. 3 doctors assessed Margaret's mental competency. All confirmed she was sharp, clear, fully capable of making informed decisions. Margaret also recorded a video statement, sat in Morrison's office, looked directly at the camera, spoke for 31 minutes. I'm 76 years old. I've lived a full life. I was married to Thomas Whitmore for 44 years. We built a good life together. I loved him. I miss him. But I've also found love again, with Ryan Hayes. I know people will judge. I know the age difference is extreme. I know my sons disapprove. I don't care. Ryan makes me happy. He's kind, thoughtful. He's never asked me for money, never hinted at wanting financial support. He's with me because he loves me, and I love him. I'm leaving him $500,000 because I want to provide for his future. I'm establishing a cancer research foundation in his late wife's name because I believe in honoring the people we've lost. Because Emily Hayes died too young, and her death should mean something. My sons, Gregory and Nathan, are financially comfortable. They don't need my entire estate. They have their own careers, their own wealth. I'm leaving them each over $1 million. That's generous by any standard. If they contest this will, if they claim Ryan manipulated me, they'll prove exactly what I've suspected for years, that they care more about my money than my happiness. I'm making this decision with complete clarity. I understand the implications, and I'm at peace with it. The will was signed November 15, 2023, witnessed, filed, legally binding. Margaret didn't tell Ryan. Wanted it to be a surprise, something he'd discover after she was gone. She didn't tell Gregory or Nathan either. Knew they'd react badly. Wanted to enjoy her remaining time without conflict. The next months were beautiful. Margaret and Ryan made plans. More travel. Maybe Ryan would reduce his training hours. Spend more time together. Margaret's health was good. She was active, sharp. Her doctor said she could live another 10 years easily, maybe more. She and Ryan attended charity events together. The March 8th gala was one of many. They donated generously, danced, enjoyed being seen as a couple. That 10-second kiss on the dance floor. Security cameras captured it. Proof of their relationship. Proof of genuine affection. Proof that would later be used to argue manipulation. But in that moment, it was just love. Simple, real, undeniable. March 11th, 2024, 3 days after the gala. Margaret received a phone call from her attorney, Robert Morrison. He needed to discuss something important. Could she come to his office? Margaret agreed, drove there that afternoon. Ryan was at the gym training clients. Morrison sat her down, explained he'd received a letter from Gregory's attorney. The sons had learned about the will somehow, were preparing to contest it. Margaret was shocked. How did they find out? Morrison didn't know, but they knew, and they were threatening legal action. Margaret was furious. I'm still alive. They're already fighting over my money while I'm still alive. Morrison advised her to talk to them, explain her decisions. Maybe they'd understand once they heard her reasoning. Margaret called Gregory that evening, confronted him. How did you find out about my will? Gregory's voice was cold. We have our ways, and we're not going to let you give our inheritance to some gold digger half your age. Margaret's voice shook with anger. Ryan is not a gold digger. And this is my money, my decision. You have no right to contest it while I'm still alive. Gregory's response was calculated. We have every right, and we have evidence you're being manipulated. Security footage, witnesses. We'll prove Ryan exploited you. The call ended badly. Margaret was devastated. Her sons were already treating her like she was incompetent, already fighting over money she hadn't even died yet. She told Ryan everything that night, about the will, about the foundation, about her son's reaction. Ryan was stunned. You left me money? You didn't need to do that. I don't want your money, Margaret. I want you. She believed him. His shock was genuine. His concern was real. But now they had a problem. Gregory and Nathan were going to fight this, make their lives difficult, challenge Margaret's competency. Margaret made a decision. She'd confront her sons in person, fly to Connecticut, sit down with them, make them understand. She booked a flight for March 19th, told Ryan she'd be gone for 3 days, would be back by March 22nd. But Gregory and Nathan had made their own decision. If their mother was determined to leave Ryan millions, if she refused to reconsider, they had limited options. Legal contest would take years, might not succeed. Margaret's competency was well documented. But if Ryan died before Margaret, if he was no longer alive to inherit, the bequests would be invalid. The money would revert to them. Phone records later recovered showed 37 calls between Gregory and Nathan between March 11th and March 15th. On March 15th, Gregory made a call to a number in Miami. Conversation lasted 18 minutes. That number belonged to a man named Carlos Mendez, 41, criminal record, known to arrange things for people willing to pay. Gregory met Mendez in person on March 16th, Miami hotel, cash exchange, $75,000, half payment up front. The job was simple. Make Ryan Hayes disappear, make it look random, robbery, carjacking, anything that wouldn't connect to the Whitmore family. Mendez brought in 2 associates, Luis Ortega and Marco Reyes. Both agreed for $25,000 each. They drove to Palm Beach on March 17th, began surveillance on Ryan, learned his routine, early mornings at the gym, training clients all day, home by 7 p.m. to the house he shared with Margaret. They waited for an opportunity, somewhere isolated, somewhere they could act without witnesses. March 19th, 2024, the opportunity came. Ryan had driven Margaret to the airport that morning. She was flying to Hartford, nervous about confronting her sons but determined. Ryan returned home alone, planned to spend the evening organizing Emily's foundation paperwork. Margaret had encouraged him to start planning even before the official funding came through. At 8:47 p.m. there was a knock at the door. Ryan answered, found 3 men standing there. They forced their way inside. Ryan tried to fight. He was strong, young, fought hard, but 3 against 1. They overpowered him, beat him. When he was unconscious, they loaded him into a vehicle, drove him to a remote location in Jonathan Dickinson State Park. They killed him there, strangled him, buried him in a shallow grave covered with brush and debris. Then they called Mendez, job done, demanded final payment. Gregory wired the remaining $37,500 that night. Meanwhile, Margaret was in Hartford, meeting with Gregory and Nathan on March 20th. The conversation was terrible. Her sons were cold, accusatory, refused to understand. They showed her the security footage from the gala. The kiss, claimed it was proof of manipulation. Margaret defended Ryan, defended her decision, told them they were being cruel and greedy. The meeting ended with Gregory making a calculated lie. Mom, you should know. Ryan left Palm Beach yesterday. We had him investigated. Found out he has a girlfriend in Tampa, someone his own age. He's been seeing her the whole time he's been with you. Margaret felt her chest tighten. That's not true. Ryan wouldn't do that. Nathan joined in. We have photos, proof. He's been using you, probably planning to take the money and disappear once you die. Margaret wanted to call Ryan, confront him, but part of her was terrified it might be true. The age difference had always made her insecure. Maybe he had been using her. She tried calling. No answer. Tried again. Voicemail. She texted, Ryan, please call me. My sons are saying terrible things. I need to hear your voice. No response. Gregory and Nathan watched her unravel, saw the doubt creeping in, pushed harder. He's probably with that girlfriend right now, probably laughing about how he fooled you. Margaret flew back to Florida on March 22nd, devastated, confused, still hoping her sons were lying. She arrived home to an empty house. No Ryan, no note, nothing. She called him repeatedly. All calls went to voicemail. She called the gym. Was Ryan scheduled today? No, they said. He'd called out sick. First time in 2 years. Margaret started believing her sons might be right. Ryan had disappeared. Maybe he had been using her. Maybe everything was a lie. The stress was overwhelming. She'd defended him to her sons, staked her reputation on his genuineness, and now he was gone. On March 24th, Margaret had a heart attack, massive, sudden. She was rushed to the hospital but didn't survive. She died believing Ryan had abandoned her, died thinking her sons had been right, died with a broken heart. Gregory and Nathan were notified, flew to Florida, arranged another funeral, went through the motions of grief. They assumed the inheritance problem had solved itself. Margaret was dead. Ryan had disappeared. Probably fled once he realized the will contest would succeed. The money would go to them. $5.8 million, split between 2 sons instead of 3 ways. But things didn't go as planned. April 2nd, 2024, a hiker in Jonathan Dickinson State Park found a shallow grave. Called authorities. Park rangers responded. They found Ryan's body. Identification through wallet still in his pocket. Cause of death determined. Homicide. Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office opened an investigation. Detective Michael Torres assigned lead. He learned about Ryan's relationship with Margaret, learned about the will, learned about the son's disapproval. He requested phone records, found the calls between Gregory and Nathan. 37 calls in 4 days. Found Gregory's call to Carlos Mendez, 18 minutes. Found financial records, $75,000 transferred through cryptocurrency. On April 8th, Carlos Mendez, Luis Ortega, and Marco Reyes were arrested, charged with murder and kidnapping. Mendez cooperated immediately, testified that Gregory Whitmore hired him, paid him, ordered Ryan's death. On April 12th, Gregory Whitmore and Nathan Whitmore were arrested in Connecticut, charged with conspiracy to commit murder and first-degree murder under felony murder rule. The trial began September 9, 2024, federal courthouse in West Palm Beach. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. Financial records, phone logs, Mendez's testimony, security footage from the gala showing Margaret and Ryan's genuine relationship. They played Margaret's video statement, her explanation of why she'd chosen to leave money to Ryan, her prediction that Gregory and Nathan would claim manipulation. The jury heard a dead woman's words defending the man her sons had murdered. Before we continue with the final verdicts, if cases like this matter to you, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. We expose inheritance murders. We honor victims. We show how justice works. Hit like if this case deserves attention. Comment your thoughts, because this is real. And what happened next proves greed destroys everything. The defense argued Mendez was lying, that Gregory and Nathan grieved their mother and would never harm anyone. But evidence was overwhelming. December 3rd, 2024, verdicts returned. Gregory Whitmore, guilty on all counts. Nathan Whitmore, guilty on all counts. Carlos Mendez, Luis Ortega, Marco Reyes, all guilty under plea agreements. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Gregory Whitmore, life without parole. Nathan Whitmore, life without parole. The judge's words were harsh. You murdered your mother's partner, then lied to her about it. She died believing he'd abandoned her, died with a broken heart because of your lies. You valued money more than her happiness, more than human life. You'll die in prison. Ryan's foundation, funded by Margaret's estate, was established posthumously. The Emily Hayes Cancer Research Foundation, $4.3 million, funding research, honoring both Emily and Margaret. Ryan's daughter? No, he had no children. The foundation is managed by independent trustees. Margaret's attorney ensures it operates as she intended. Gregory and Nathan are incarcerated separately. Appeals denied. Inheritance forfeited. Margaret and Ryan are both gone. But their love story, brief as it was, proved that connection transcends age, that happiness can be found unexpectedly, that genuine love exists even when society says it shouldn't. If this affected you, subscribe, comment, share. Remember Margaret Whitmore and Ryan Hayes, 2 people who found love when they weren't looking for it, who chose happiness despite judgment. Her sons destroyed that, murdered him, lied to her, broke her heart. Justice was served, but Margaret and Ryan are still gone. Thank you for watching, for caring, for remembering that love matters at any age. This was their story. This is justice.